Hey, it's Morella Manelli, and I'm so excited because today I'm going to show you one way on how to do a full highlight. So I'm going to do some placement as well as a little bit of color correction and just kind of show you my step-by-steps and things that I would do. And just keep in mind that each and every client is going to be a different scenario. So this is just one client that came in and one way that I'm going to do this full highlight technique, because we do have a lot going on with her blonding and how we're going to touch up her dark roots. So let's go ahead and get started. It's been about 8 weeks since my client's been in to see me, and it's been about 12 weeks since she actually got a full highlight. So you can see her natural level 5 new growth coming in here, and she overall really likes to be really blonde. So this is my sectioning technique. So you can see I have lots of diagonals going on here, and I'm actually going to start from the bottom and work my way right on towards the top. Maybe it's been a little longer than 12 weeks for these back roots, but nonetheless, I think it's been about that time. So right in the back, I went ahead and split it right in half. So I'm going to work on one side and then the other. So a little trick that I like to do here in the back is brush the hair all the way up and then weave that first couple sections down. So what this is going to do is give me a lot of control and give me the best precision possible. And I'm actually foiling my hair right on up. So this actually gives me a much more comfortable position to apply as well as get as really close as possible to that root area. And I like to take my time in this zone. So I'm actually using a 10 volume developer for this section. So that way I can eliminate any possible damage and breakage going on. So this is an area that I do start at, but I use a lower volume developer and then work my way up as I work throughout the hair. For the section right behind this one, I'm still going to do the same exact technique by brushing the hair all the way up and then weaving it down. So I usually do 2 back-to-backs right around the hairline, and this is the same even for the front and the top, as you'll see a little bit later. So what I'm actually using is Kenra Professional Beyond Bond Lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 10 volume developer. And I chose this lightener because she does have a lot of blonding going on, and since I'm working with a little bit of compromised hair, I love this lightener to help protect her hair since we may have some overlap. For this next section, I'm actually taking a 1/2 inch subsection and then weaving right on top of that. So this is actually a pretty thick section, but she does want lots and lots of blonding, so there's not too much of space in between each of my weaves. So it's almost like a slice with a little bit of hair taken out, if you will. And I just chose that because she just has a lot of darkness going on here. Like I said, I thought it had been about 12 weeks since she had gotten her full highlight, but I think it's definitely been a little bit more than that. So I'm going in with lots of highlights and baby lights throughout this entire back section, but still taking my diagonals in those 2 back panels. You can also see that I'm applying the lightener towards that mids and ends and then working it up with my brush a little bit sideways. So this is just a technique that helps me get as close as possible to the root area and to also avoid any bleeding. I'm going to continue on creating baby lights and highlights throughout this entire back section, still utilizing 1/2 inch subsections between each of my foils in that diagonal fashion. So I usually like diagonals because it's going to give me the most diffused line and give me the most coverage as well as making it look really natural. One of the reasons why I really love Beyond Bond Lightener is because of the possible overlap. So that's definitely the case with this application here. And since I am bringing that lightener down, I'm not too concerned about picking out the dark pieces and overlapping because it has inner and outer bond technology, which does help protect the hair and protect the integrity of the hair. And I'm left with really strong, shiny, silky hair, which is pretty amazing for a lightener to do. You can see I've moved on to the next triangular section. that is right above that bottom section that I started. So you can see I'm still going in a diagonal fashion, and I'm still going in the same diagonal direction, but it's just giving me a lot of control, and that way I don't miss a hair or a section. I'm still taking those 1/2 inch subsections, so lots and lots of foils are going in on this. And I'm actually adding in a little bit more blonding because she has such a large grow out. So here's a shot of the entire back section. So you can see I actually went horizontal on that very, very top last triangular section. And now it's time to do that front hairline. So again, you can see that I'm brushing that hair all the way up and then weaving it right on down. And again, this is going to give me a lot of control, and you do have the option of whether you want to fold it up like we did at that neckline, but I'm actually just going to bring it right on down utilizing a little mini half foil. So I just took the foil and chopped it right in half, and again, just being really, really detailed with this. So I'm actually still using that 10 vol right on this hairline, but I did mix up a secondary bowl once I got to that top back section and mixed up 20 volumes. So still at a 1:2 mixing ratio. I just really like that type of viscosity. And once you get in this front hairline, I'm gonna do one more back to back with no hair in between. So there's no subsection. So this is typically what I do for all of my hairline application, because all of my clients typically like lots and lots of blonding right around the hairline. So I sometimes even do 3 back to back. So it just really depends on each client. Now for this side section, I'm actually going to start working in little mini pie sections, creating a pivotal application. So I'm going to work my way up with these mini pie sections, and what it's going to do is give me the most natural end result, especially if you want the most coverage of blonde and your client wears her hair up a lot like this particular client does. So now you can see here this entire side section is complete, and you can kind of see how these foils start to move from that front hairline and they're pivoting all the way up. Now for this front section, I actually forgot to start filming right when I did that first foil, but basically I brushed the hair all the way back and then pulled that highlight towards me, just like I'm doing for this first section, and just like I did for the rest of the hairline application in the back and on the side. So what I'm doing a little bit differently though for this top section is, even though this client is relatively all over blonde on her ends, she still wants that really bold blonde right in that front section. So I'm actually doing 4 back-to-back highlights with no hair in between the foil. So there's no subsection whatsoever. So this is just going to give me a slightly rooted but not rooted effect, and which is the reason why I'm doing back-to-backs. So instead of doing slices, which gives a harsh line, doing a weave is actually going to break up that harsh line. So it's going all the way to the root, but it just gives a more jaggedy application, which is why I like doing the back-to-back highlight type of technique. Also, this client is obsessed with the idea of a money piece, which this is going to help at least give her that illusion of a money piece with a strong blonde frame right in the front. And then as I start to work towards the back, I'm still going to do those 1/2 inch baby lights in between with subsections in between that hair. Now, one thing to note that I didn't mention just yet is that I actually changed my lightener choice right when I got up to the top here, just because I wanted a little bit more extra pow, and I decided to use Counter Professional Blue Powder Lightener at a 1:2 with 20 vol just for that new growth area, but I'm still using that blue powder lightener where I know I'm gonna have a little bit of overlap going on. So I'm actually using, again, 2 different lighteners within the same foil. So I'm tapping in that blue powder right at that new growth and then bringing down that Beyond Bond where there's highlights and natural hair going on. So again, it's just still keeping that integrity of the hair, but still giving me that oomph right at the root area, which I definitely need to get this section kind of caught up with what I have going on the back and the sides. And I usually do this just because doing a full highlight application is so time consuming. So it's kind of nice to be cognizant of what you're mixing up and why you're mixing it up, A little added tip is don't be afraid to mix up a new batch of lightener every 20 minutes or so. Now I continued on doing the same application throughout, and then here's the final full application going on here. So lots and lots of foils. Now I did go through the back and remove some of the foils. I just wiped it clean with a dry towel. I didn't wet it. I just let the lightener dry out while I wait and let the front foils finish processing. Now after about 30 minutes, I went ahead and removed the remaining foils from her hair, and then I'm actually getting ready to put in her final toner. So I decided to mix up Demi Permanent in Kenra Professional 8NA at a 1:2 with 9 volume developer. That's dedicated activator. And I'm gonna use that as a root tap, and this is a way for me to diffuse that line between her natural and where the highlights were placed. So I'm literally just tapping it in really, really carefully throughout her entire head. And then once I'm done applying this 8NA right onto that root area, I'm then gonna go through and mix up a different batch of 10A with 10B at a 1:2 with 9 volume developer. And then I'm just gonna bring that through to her mids and ends. But first I go through and I actually comb that 8NA first, just to kind of bring it down a little bit. And then I'm gonna go through and apply that secondary formula and just smudge the line between those two formulas. So I want that blend from that 8 natural ash to blend right into that 10 ash and 10 beige to give me that really bright creamy blonde that we're going for. So overall, we're just looking for something really, really natural blonde shade. So I processed her for actually the full 20 minutes right at the bowl. And then I did a rinse and condition and then gave her a final blowout. And here's the final result of my full highlighting technique. And just to give you guys a little recap, I did go in with 2 different lighteners. So I started out with that Beyond Bond to give me that protection, and since those highlights and foils were going to stay on a little bit longer because we're doing a full highlight, started out with that lightener to give that extra protection, and then I finished her off with the blue powder lightener. And then for her final glaze, I did a little bit of a color melt or a root tap, whatever you want to call it, 8NA right onto that root area just to give me a little bit more depth and control, and then blended that right into that 10A and 10B, which is beige, and gave me a nice creamy white finish, which I absolutely love, and my client loves it as well. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video, and make sure to check out my other tutorials on my channel, and I hope to see you guys next time.